Hello and welcome, and we're going to work with MapWindow GIS today. MapWindow GIS is similar to ArcGIS, not as complicated or as demanding of computer resources. It's specifically designed to work with the Purdue Manure Management Planner. Hopefully you got it installed correct from the other videos that we're working with. Now we're going to actually show how to use it to actually create your farm map. So first thing we're going to do is come to MMP Tools up here at top and click on that. Then go to the Clipper web app here, and then come over and get base layers for a new project. What that'll do is open up a web page, and it comes to the Clipper web page, and I'm going to select Iowa. Obviously, if you're not working in Iowa, select the farm you're working with or place you're working with. And you can go to county, and I'm just going to click on county here, and I'm going to come down to Winneshiek County. Find my county. You could also search by zip code, and when it does that, it's going to come up with Winneshiek County, and I'm down here in the Kelmer area, so I'm going to kind of center Kelmer in there, and then I'm going to magnify by hitting the plus sign in the bottom right corner here and move it around, and I want to be able to see it, the farm that I'm going to be working with here, and zoom into it as close as I can, but still be able to draw a box around the entire farm. And that's probably just a little too far because I've got to get some north and south area. Once I've done that and got most of the farm here, I'm going to click the define area. When I click on that, I can click on the mouse on my the left button on my mouse, excuse me, hold it down and draw a box around all the area that I want to clip out. And I'm just going to call it NICC Farm ICM, or Clipper, clipped. I would just call it NICC Farm. That's good enough. You can call it whatever what you want or leave it blank for that matter. I'm just going to call it NICC Farm. I'm going to submit that, and I'm going to pause while this processes. And depending on the size of the area that you drew out, it may take a few seconds to a minute or so to process. And eventually this will pop up. That tells you you've got it ready. All you got to do now is click on download this file. And then it's going to go, sometimes your computer may automatically save it to your downloads, but I'm going to hit this arrow next to it because I'm going to tell it where I want to save it. So I'm going to save as. If that option comes up, great. Sometimes it may go into your downloads. If it does, you'll just have to copy it over to that ICM folder that you should have already created. So I'm going to save into this ICM folder that I've created and just click Save. And I can close this window. I'm done with that now. I can close this, and my Missouri Clipper will pop right back up here. If not, just open it up and start it up again. And come into Management Tools. Now I'm going to start a new farm project, and I'm going to start it from a Clipper zip file. I don't need to unzip. Those of you in GIS probably, hopefully understand what zipped files are. This one I do not need to unzip. So it's going to be in my ICM folder. It's going to be this NICC farm. Don't worry about this plot map. I'll show you that here in a minute. If you're working off campus, you probably don't have that. This is just for people working with an NICC campus. But this is what I've clipped off the Missouri Clipper. I'm going to open that up. And it's going to ask me, where do I want to save it? Well, I'm going to save it back in my documents in that ICM folder where I told you to create everything. And just click Save, and yes, and it's going to create a file or a map now of my farm. And you'll notice with that map, I'm going to have a photo, I'm going to have a topo, which is turned off watershed. I don't think that pertains to this area. It has some soils. I'm going to turn those off right now because they're a little confusing. Setbacks, there aren't any in there right now, but that's something I'm going to be putting in. And fields. Now, for those of you doing the NICC farm, we have a soil health project plot that is going on basically in the middle of the farm. Those boundaries are already drawn out, so I don't need to draw them in myself. And if you've done some mapping already, some shape files or something like using ArcGIS, you can actually bring some of those shape files in here. They have to be a form of shape files. Well, where's that at? Well, that's what we showed here earlier. That's this thing here. You notice it's got a zipper on it. So this one I do need to unzip first. So I'm just going to click Extract All, extract that, and it's going to create a folder of the SHP Associates plot map. I don't need to do anything else besides that, but come in here. Now I'm going to come to MMP Tools, and I'm going to import that file, fields from a shapefile into my fields file already. And I'm just going to open that up. Oops, not the one I want. That was the one from the Clipper. This is the one I want, the plot map. Open that up. And what that will do is it'll create some fields here already. And it looks like they're already labeled. I think if I come in here, label set up. Oops. Okay, let me pause it a minute. I think I'm going to find out how to turn off those labels so they're not interfering with stuff. Okay, so just to turn off those labels so they're just not filling up my map too much, I'm just going to right-click on here, come down to the property. So I hit the right mouse button on that fields layer, and I'm going to come in here, and where it comes on down, and I can scroll down just a little bit, and I'll find labels set up. It says labels visible. I'm just going to say false. And that'll take those labels off. They're still there. I can still relabel if I want, and we can take care of that later. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to draw in some additional field boundaries on this. So to do that, I'm just going to start up on the north side. So I hit the zoom button up here, zoom in, draw a box around the area I want to zoom in, and that will zoom to the size of that box as we look at it. You may notice me looking to the side a lot because basically I'm pausing every once in a while here. Just want to make sure I get things correct as I'm making this recording. So anytime I look to the side, it means I'm hitting the pause button to slow this down just a little bit. So anyway, we're going to add a new shapefile, and that's right here. So I'm just going to click on Add Shapefile, and what that allows me to do is just click around this field here. And you notice there's kind of a waterway or grassy area in this field. We're going to include that as part of this field on the NICC farm. Again, if you're drawing your own farm boundaries, yeah, I'll line the boundaries on the fields as you look at them. So I'm going to draw this first one in. And basically, it's like drawing a big rubber band around there. Every time I click, it's going to put one of those blue dots down to anchor a corner. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to right mouse click, and it'll close it up. And I'm just going to call this field 1. And we'll click, not worry about subfield. And it'll close that field up, field 1, labels it 3.4 acres. Next field I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out the whole extent here. So I'm going to click, come on, yeah. Zoom full extent there, and you notice the labels are all back on for everything. We'll just leave that here because it automatically does that. We have a big field right here, and it looks like there's several there, but just to keep things simple, we're going to farm all that together now. So we're going to make that into one field here. Okay, so this time when I add a shape, I'm actually going to start inside the boundaries of this field. Right there, my first click is going to be in there, and then my second click is going to be on the edge of it, and then I'm going to come up and go around this big field. Please ignore those numbers. That's something I mistakenly got onto this map. And we're going to come down. And actually, you probably want to be a little more detailed than what I'm doing here. I'm going through this rather quickly in the interest of time. And then when I get done here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually click inside there. And then I'm going to finish my sketch. And we're going to call this field 2. Click OK. And it didn't work properly. Sorry about that. Let me see what I did wrong here. So what I wanted to do is I wanted this field boundary to stay inside this other one and just match up along the edge. So I can see right up in here, but it didn't do it for the whole thing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to click up here since it's not exactly what I want. So I'm selecting. I'm going to click in the center of that field that I just drew. And then I'm going to come up here to minus shape to get rid of it. And yes, I want the selected shape gone. Zoom back out. And then zoom into that area again so I can draw that field again. And add a shape. Again, I'm going to start over, click inside there, and click on the corner, up, around. Like I said, I'm going to cut some corners here in the interest of time. My field isn't going to look as nice as your guys's. Hopefully you do a little better job than what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to click inside of this field several places. And you notice the line's catching up to me. It's a little slower in processing it from the computer here. And then right click when I get up to here. Now I'll call this field 2. And click OK. And then what it'll do, you'll notice, I hope, there. it actually disappears that line that was inside of here and matches the boundary of field 2 with my plot boundaries as we look at it. And that's what I want. I want that to match up the same line there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the rest of the fields of this farm, and I'll pause while I'm doing that, and then I'll show you the final map when we get it done. And you can go ahead and work on that yourself too. So with that, let me pause if I can do that. Okay, one of the things I found as I was digitizing the fields and I came down here to the south end, started working on it, is I actually digitized in a little bit of the neighbor's farm. Probably don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that back out of my digitizing. And the way I can do that is I came up here and I clicked on this select icon and I selected this field here because I've got to cut this part out, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is remove a vertex, and to do that I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so I can see a little bit better what's going on here. And if I click on remove vertex here, that red dot with the minus down here, I can see if I take that one out, and then I could come over here in this one, but the next one's way over here. So I've got to, it's not going to match that vertex, so I'm going to actually move that existing vertex here. And I'm going to bring that down and match up right here. And it's a little sloppy there, so I could actually, if I wanted to clean this up, add a new vertex in here. It should add one. And then I could actually move that, once I find it, up to there. So there's ways of editing this. So I'm done with that editing. I can just zoom back out and start editing with the rest of my fields. So I'll pause again while I finish the rest of my fields. Okay, so I got all the fields drawn. You notice I generalized quite a bit here on the college's farm. I don't want to get us into too much busy work. We're already at 10 fields plus the 4 plots, so that's 14 to work with. Most of this has been managed together. The entire farm is essentially chopped now. Some had a little bit different field history, and technically, to do this right, we should have been anywhere there was anything a little bit different field history. Probably should be sectioned out a little bit different. As you look at some of these, look different. The map is fairly old. You can notice even here, those of you familiar with NICC, we have our new beef facility here, and that is not on this map yet. So I would actually, if I had that updated map, I'd probably go ahead and draw in that beef pasture there because that's managed a little more intensively than other pastures are. But for our purpose for this class, this is what we're going to draw in right now. The only other thing is everything else is labeled field, and these in here are labeled import because that's where our test plot's at. I probably want to change that name other than import. So I'm going to right click over here on the fields, and I'm going to view my table editor. And you'll notice here all the fields, this is a field label. So rather than calling that import 1, I'm going to go and just click on it and call it SHP1, and then SHP2 for soil health plot, and so forth. So I'm going to get those 4, and you can do that for anything. If you didn't like the labels on some of yours, you can come in here and relabel them right in here in this editor and change them out. You know, so we got a field label as well as a field name. I'm not sure why they have that different. I suppose you may have a longer field name maybe on something and you want to abbreviate the label. So we could just put those as numbers and then call the names over here. That would be a possibility. Maybe if we decide later we need to clean it up. So there's your information about all your fields. It's already done here. They've got information about soils in here as well as a few other things. Some tables are blank right now. But if I go ahead and click apply to that, and close it. It should have changed the labels. It looks like it's not changing the labels right away. So we're going to come back in here and we're going to go view attribute editor here. Not the editor, excuse me. Going to come into properties, check this label thing. Labels visited, yes. We're going to edit it. Make sure it's on field label, acres label, yep. So those are in there. We're just going to relabel. There, now it does it. So I had to relabel it for it to work first. So now they're labeled SHP1, 2, 3, and again, if you want to see that, we can zoom in and look at that as far as our fields. But we do now have all our fields labeled. So with that, we're going to export our map. Will be the next step thing we're going to. So to export this map so that we can turn it in for Brightspace that you've completed it, and so I can use it as a reference later and print it out, we're just going to come up here to edit, export, and here it says map. And then I'm going to make sure I'm in that ICM folder here. All image types, I'm going to make it into a JPEG. It tends to be a little bit smaller image and works a little bit better as far as using on the internet or submitting it. And I'm just going to call it farm. Actually, we'll call it NICC farm fields because we're going to do more maps. So we just want to make sure we identify this one as our farm fields. And then we'll click save. Come in there, come to my file manager, and you see seeing that. Now this is probably blink because something with my computer's not letting it stay open. But if I come here and I just open this up, and you'll see there's my map. And that's the end of that assignment. Hopefully it worked well for you. If you have any questions, just make sure you let me know.